Welcome back. In this doesn't want to talk about the layout editor. This is basically where we build our user interfaces for applications using graphical interfaces. We can build a variety of UI, such as buttons, image, you use the scrolling views or similar. So I'm going to go ahead and to enter the studio, and I'm actually going to go ahead and start a new application. So I'm going to go in here, say a stock in the application like before. I'm going to use empty activity. If you don't remember the settings, I'm going to really quickly recap them. We use SDK version 27. That's the one that we actually decided to use for the remainder of this course. We use the language of Corkman. This is the place that you actually save your application. We use the reverse name of our domain or website. Or if we don't have a website, we just use a reverse name of our name. Let's say, Steve, it doesn't matter for now. So we do that. Then the last thing we do is we actually have to give you the name. And this application I'm going to call it App for Layout Editor. Doesn't really matter what you call it at this point, because we are not really going to publish any of these applications or even send it to our friends or anything. We just do it for our own tests. So here's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to go ahead and say finish. And once again, once my understudy opens up in another lesson, which I think is the lesson coming up after this one, I'm going to talk to you about everything that is here in the Android Studio. But before that, I want to actually build a little bit of confidence. And because of that, we are going to one of the files in here. And I wanted you just follow me along. I want you to go here in your Android project. And if you don't really see this one here, you have to press a little project window. Or if you want, you can actually go to View 2 and Windows. And in here you can actually go to a project. So once you have in here, I want you to go to a folder called Resources Address. And I want you to go to for the record layout, I want to open a file called activity_main. Once you end up in the activity on this score, you might see this code or you might see an interface. Depending on the settings of Yolanda in the studio. But regardless, I want you to actually go up here and press this little button that can actually show you the design of your Android Studio, which is basically going to show you what you are designing for this coming application. This is where we have that video that you saw it when we first ran our application. So in the design mode, I'm going to go in here. I'm going to say I don't want this one. Let's go ahead and delete it. And then from this palette of components on the side, I can actually add a few objects in here. Let's say I want to have a button on this one, then I want to make it a little bit larger. Alright. So like that. And then for my button, I want to take side to be, say, register. Let's say this is a registration view. And then in here, I'm actually going to go ahead the text. I'm going to say give me a plain text that is going to be there. I'm going to call this one username, for instance, and then I'm going to have another one, which is for a password. I'm going to place it there. Well, I want you to do it. I want you to just play around a little bit with all of this stuff. Some of the components you find in here, they make sense very easily, such as, you know, when you want to add a button or if you want to add a checkbox or if you want to add it takes some of them a little bit more complex stuff, such as when you want to add a layout or if you want to add a container. You will get to see most of these through the course. The will be probably won't get to see are rather simple. You can figure them out by yourself or they give you some hints about how you should use them. But the important thing is that you have to learn that despite the activity on the score, main exam is basically where we create our Android applications interfaces. It has to almost run what is the design mode, which is the one we're currently using and has a programming mode which you can actually hard code your pieces of interface, which we will see in the upcoming lessons. How we use that for now. I want to use that design mode and add a few elements in here so you can build a little bit of confidence into how the interfaces are actually created. Chip, something in mind that is, if you run this application right now, you will not see this interface. Let me actually show that to you. If I go ahead and run my application and when the application loads, we actually see something like this, which is quite different. We only see one of the buttons and none of the two edit text. And that's simply because we need to set our constraints for this. And that's something that we can talk about in another lesson, in more details. If any of you are really interested in doing it right away and you want to get a sense of how it works, you basically need to set up where these different objects are laid out. I'm glad to a very basic one right now simply because this is on the topic of this lesson. I'm going to go ahead and say there is a constant up there. There's another one over there. And then just this other object, say there's a constraint from this one to that one and one to the left of it. And then I'm going to say this button is in here, and that is that I know this makes up for a very ugly user interface, but this is actually going to work and they're going to be able to see it in our interface in here, which is giving us a little bit more confidence as to what things are and how they work. But again, like I said, we will have a lesson that we talk about these constraints in details and how we set them, as well as things such as guides and values and whatnot. For now, all you want to do is you want to go through these guys in here, all this stuff in the tablets, and just drag and drop some of them just to get a sense of what do they do and what do they mean. Again, some of them are going to be very simple. Some of them are going to be a little bit more complicated. Don't worry about the complex ones. You're not going to make any of these actually do anything. We are not writing any code. None of them is meant to work. They're just trying to get a little bit more familiarity with how this interface builder basically works for us. Once you're done with that, let's go ahead to our next lesson where we actually explore all of our Android Studio and we get a sense of how things are actually working in here.